right. Good morning. Hello, everybody in the Brew Crew. I'm Eric, N1JUR, and I'm with
Shannon, KC1OHT here in the US, or 2 Echo Zero Oscar Hotel Tango in the UK.
somebody write a theme song for her, please. Come on. It's dying for someone to create something. Shannon, I know you're in the chat. I heard your audio, your illustrious composing there with the YL song. So yeah, definitely get on that one. All right. Well, enough of that chatter. If you're watching live, say hello in the chat, everybody. Good morning. And tell us where you're coming from and whether you're sitting at the jobby job and, pretending to manage two screens there, us being one. But if it's your first time here today, I see a few in there. You're officially part of the Brew Crew. And so rattle them off, Shannon. Who we got in the chat this morning?
Oh, yeah, we got Julie from POTA Power, just showed that. We got our favorite, Sean, what's his name?
Sean. Wow. Oh, my gosh. We're still in this one.
Oh, you said it right underneath, too. You said, "Good morning, Sean."
Sean, exactly.
We got Kyle, KC9IMA, we got Tortoise Overland, we got Shannon, K1LY, and we just had Ted come in, and I think that is it for now
Cool.
of the
Nice.
chatterboxes.
Yes.
Um,
The wife and husband still bickering?
Always.
Okay. Good.
We got someone, Tobiad to CD664. I see
Okay.
in there. Oh, that was on my channel. That's why I didn't see it in your chat. And Tortoise already sent us a super chat
Sweet.
before the show started for us to go get some dunks.
Well, I've already got mine in my official Brew and Activate cup here. Nice little tumbler, awesome. Always great for Dunkin' Donuts or any other fluid that you might enjoy. And, Shannon, I wish, Shane, over at the clubhouse could have found a big enough koozie wrap, but, she has to downsize, which that one doesn't look like. That's a large there, right?
Yeah, no, I went with the large. You know what? I'm going to talk to Shane, though, because I have an idea of maybe a can koozie that will fit a Monster energy drink.
Ooh.
Because that
Actually,
is my other jam, like, sometimes in the morning, if I don't get my coffee, I have the fridge stocked with Monsters, so I'll have, like, a Monster to kinda get me going, or sometimes I'll do the Monster in the afternoon if I have the coffee in the morning, so
gotta have
I'm
our
already
caffeine.
1 Monster and, like, a quarter of a coffee in, so I am fired up this morning.
See, but like if you look at the Dunkin' Donuts cup, the larger ones have the smaller base. It's sort of like putting on a pair of tight pants you think you can still fit in. You might be able to put the koozie on the bottom of that. It still might kind of pass. I don't know. It's possible.
It sort of fits, but it's not quite the right shape.
It's like those jeans in high school we all wish we could wear again. All right. Well, welcome. As I said before, this is Brew and Activate. So quick heads up for folks. If you've just tuned in this morning, tonight, welcome, as we always like to say. But this is about real world POTA. We talk about the wins. We talk about the slow days. We definitely talk about weird stuff. That's no doubt. And all the lessons we only learn by doing here. So whether you're an activator, you hunt, or you're just POTA curious, then heck, you're in the right place. So if that sounds like a conversation you want to be a part of, then we want you to go hang out with us even after we're done with the show. And you can do that by heading over to our Discord there. That link is pinned at the very top of our chat there. So if you haven't joined the Discord, come be part of that. Come hang out in the Brew and Activate channel there. We're always doing some great stuff. We're always having some cool conversations. And we've got a lot going on, and this train ain't slowing down because we've got a lot more awesome, cool things to talk about and get deeper dives on. So as we always like to do, we're going to do a little quick housekeeping to catch you guys up. For those that obviously can't, and we understand, we all have our jobs on a Friday, and we'd rather be watching something like a show like this versus, listening to our manager, babble on there. You can always go back to, our instant replay there because we've got a Brew and Activate podcast. And so right after we get this show, we do a quick edit, we upload it, and it's available for you. So go head over to your favorite podcast player of choice and subscribe and be part of that. And you can catch all of the action you might have missed or little tidbits of information. And that's all available anytime, 24/7. So yeah, definitely love you guys to be part of that. And if you got any comebacks or feedback on that, let me know because we're always interested to see what you guys think about it. And so with that, we've got a couple of cool little things. Shannon and I have, finally got around to get some of our own merch finally in. It's been a little bit of delay here and there, but we love repping, Brew and Activate. I love repping my channel. Shannon's got her own line of awesome t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff, and hats and tees and stickers. But today we both are wearing some really cool things. I am wearing our official Brew and Activate shirt. I'd spin around, but then I'd probably choke myself with the ear cord. But on the back it says POTA on. I also have one of my favorite shirts that I very much love. This one's our Activate, Logged, and Packed Up, if I can find the right camera here. This one's another great t-shirt. I'm looking forward to wearing that next week. I mean, heck, we're going to be hitting 60, 70. So we're going t-shirts all the way. And I know Shannon's got a couple.
Yep, I have my POTA This Is How I Roll shirt on today. Can't really see it too well because my stupid background, but there you go. You can kind of see if I hold it up like
there
that.
we go.
So
Well, that's
POTA
even better.
Wagon, This Is How I Roll. We're repping that shirt today. I placed an order and met up with Eric at HRO in Salem, New Hampshire yesterday, actually,
Yep.
and picked up my order from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I see he's got my
Oh, you
POTA
roll.
This Is How I Roll sweatshirt up there. So since Shannon K1LY indicated that she likes long sleeve shirts and sweatshirts, I made everything as a long sleeve and a short sleeve. So the newest one that I just made, I don't know if we ever showed this on the show yet. I think we did last week,
Yeah.
didn't we? The
Yep.
I Am YL Hear Me Roar shirt. And I wore that yesterday. Actually, I came home right away and I put it on. I was just so excited to wear it. So
Very cool color and very cool design. So yeah, if you're a YL or even not a YL tortoise, you'd look great in this too. So, you might want to just head on over to livefreeandham.com/shop, pick up one for yourself and, sport your wares there, my friend.
and if you're a OM, pick it up for your favorite YL. I'm sure it makes a great gift.
It does. 100%. I'm with you on that. So, and just as a sidebar story, I haven't mentioned a whole heck of a lot of that, but you might hear on Live Free and Ham. You ever hear about the little hammies? So if you head over to livefreeandham.com, we ended up. Shannon was kind of taken back, but really enjoyed the little surprise. It was kind of like shooting fish in the barrel. Sadly, I like to tag cars. So those Jeepers out there, they have their ducks in the windshield and stuff like that. I'm like, I want to have something for the ham radio community. So I created this small little hammy here, and there's a small little disc on the bottom. You can put your call sign on here. I don't know if you can make it out with the light there, if I flip it over the right way. And it says, "You've been hammed," and basically just put this on the, the little door handle, put it on the windshield, somewhere they're going to see it. And it's hilarious to watch because, short story, we were at Costco one time, and I caught a guy with his ham radio antennas on his car, and I'm like, oh, I got to grab one, grabbed it out, fill in my call sign, and put on there. And I was ready to drive away, thinking, like, no big deal. My wife's like, no, I want to sit and watch. And so we sat in Costco parking lot for 45 minutes waiting for this guy to come out of his car to see this little hammy on his little door handle. And then of course I'm like, all right, let's drive away. And of course, as I drive away, he must have saw my truck because I've got antennas on it, and he followed me all the way up to the light. And he's like, his wife's like tapping on her window to have me roll down, and then he's yelling from the driver's seat, "Thanks for the hammy!" And I was like, it was like, oh my gosh, this is a little embarrassing, but still fun altogether to be part of. So you can head over and pick up a few of those hammies if you want to just spread some, ham radio love, as they kind of say. So, all right, enough of that. Let's go back to our dual view here.
Yeah. So, and to go along with that story about HRO and the little hammy, right? So, I got up there early. I figured, I'm not gonna drop Miles off at school, go home for like 30 minutes to an hour and just like sit there just to leave again, right? I hate going in and out of the house. I don't know if anybody else feels that too.
Yep.
So, I went to Dunkin' Donuts, grabbed my coffee, went up to HRO, and I was sitting in the parking lot. And of course, I'm doing the PokeNet on the way, as I do, because I do that most mornings, Monday through Friday. And this guy comes up and like taps on my window as I'm parked in HRO parking lot, and he's like, "Hey, I heard you on the net, and I heard that you were on your way up to HRO." And he was meeting someone to like trade radios or whatever. And then his traveling companion comes up to me when we're in the store, and he recognized me from YouTube. So that was pretty exciting. That's like the first time I've been randomly recognized from YouTube. He said, thank you for the videos. And I felt bad because I was completely unprepared. I
She
didn't have
no
stickers.
stickers
I didn't
whatsoever.
have any of my eyeball QSO cards. I was very bad. But then, I think, like Eric said, he had the hammies, and then he's like, "Do you have any hammies?" I'm like, "I don't have any hammies. What are you talking about?"
Mhm.
So then he, thrust some hammies upon me to give out, which I really do wish I had them, because there was one time I was doing a POTA at US 2445, the Lynn Shore Drive, and there was another car there with like ham radio license plates and all these stickers all over it that I have never seen before. I
Mhm.
forget what the call sign was, but if I had something to like put on their car, I could have been like, "Hey, you've been hammed."
Exactly.
I think it was someone that lives in Marblehead. So
Oh, cool.
if you're out there and you live in Marblehead and you're a ham radio operator,
We're sorry.
meet me at the POTA.
Exactly. Yes. Just pay attention to the ham alert. Put KC10HT in your ham alert and go visit her when she's actually activating.
Yes.
Very cool. So yeah, go pick up yourself some hammies, spread some love. It sounds like a fun thing to do and keep it going. So we've got a couple of little more housekeeping items I want to dive into real quick. She's got to get those out there. She definitely has them in a big stack. So yeah, get your sticker when you can. We've got to make a big mention. We've got a big party going on tonight. So if you haven't heard, over on Live Free and Ham, we are putting together the biggest, I think, so far that I'm aware of, YL POTA Party Hangout. They aren't just all POTA people. They're a whole bunch of awesome, wonderful ladies who can run circles around myself in the hobby. They do soda, they do CW, they do everything, contesting, they do POTA, they do everything in between that they, are all gathering in one place, which, maybe the world might explode at that moment or everything might come to an end. Who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But all the way, they're going to be there sharing their true experiences on everything in ham radio and how they got into it and why they love the hobby and hopefully, continuing to spread the love of motivating more other YLs to get more actively involved and having more YLs in the hobby. I'm all for it. I don't know about you, Shannon. So you looking forward to it?
Of course. This is going to be such a highlight. Obviously, I want to do everything I can to inspire more women and ladies to get out there and be more radioactive. And I think by, those of us, especially the very few ham radio YouTube women that are out there, there's like maybe only like 5 or 6 of us, for us to, hopefully make ourselves more visible and noticeable. It will inspire more women to not be so shy and
Yeah.
get out there and get on the air and do what we love, in whatever way it is that we love to do it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Shannon's no stranger to this. She's been doing the circuit, as we all mentioned in the last episode. But prior to that, she was on for the first International Women's Day with us over at Live Free and Ham, and that was awesome. And definitely kind of was the impetus kickoff of, where she's at. And this thing's growing every year. So it's really cool to see. And see all of these great ladies out there playing a hobby I love to do and be part of. And, I always encourage my daughter to, get involved in engineering and, those type of aspects and not, shy away from it. And she's, grabbed the bull by the horns and gotten her ticket. Now, boys get in the way, so I can't, steer her clear of that right now. But she'll come back and she'll, definitely want to get involved because she, sees how much fun I'm having and whatnot. So all good there. So yeah, links in the chat there. Make sure you head on over to Live Free and Ham, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you get notified when we go live tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for those that are marking it on their calendars. And it's going to be a blast. We are going to have some real cool fun and I'm sure awesome stories about, everybody and their ham radio experiences. So, all right. We've got some sad news. Although, do you want to do the sad news after, or do you want me to just do the 5-2 challenge before that?
No, we kind of talked
Okay.
about the PokeNet, so we
Okay,
can
we did.
do the
All
sad
right.
news. So,
Okay.
and I hate to be the person to like bring the tone of the show down, but I do think it's important to recognize when, a member of the community passes, because we are a family, we're family, And this, touched me very deeply. I'm still really in shock about it. I found out about it on Tuesday when I joined the PokeNet, that one of the longest time members, not only of the PokeNet, but probably the person that I have spoken to on the air and also met in person, the longest licensed person that I have ever known and talked to, Bud NY1Z, one of the net coordinators for the PokeNet. He passed away on Sunday, March 1st, which was actually his 86th birthday. And you can
Wow.
see his picture there. I can scroll down the
Yeah.
page a little bit. So when I looked him up like 2 years ago when I first started joining the PokeNet, and I saw this picture of him, I was just completely blown away. So, this is a picture of him taken in 1954 with his first ham radio station. So, this is a man that has been licensed for like over 70 years. And he was on the PokeNet pretty much every day that he could be. And, always had something to contribute. He listened so closely to the PokeNet and would always throw something in there about everything that people said. He loved hearing the weather report from my weather station. He would always say, like, hopefully Shannon will give us the weather rundown. And he kept meticulous logs. He would know if someone had joined the PokeNet before. He would always write down their call sign, their name. I'm pretty sure he was probably writing down my weather reports. I think he would like read back, like the change in barometric pressure.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget, when I first started joining the PokeNet and I wasn't really sure what to talk about. And this is a great tip for anyone that does, nets, whether it's 2 meter nets or HF nets. If you need to find topics, I started looking up this day in history on Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh, cool.
And so I remember one day, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, I looked it up, and it happened to be VE Day that day. So for those that don't know, VE Day is Victory in Europe Day, when victory was declared against Germany from World War II. And Bud had mentioned that he had like vague memories of VE Day when he was 5 years old, and people like running into the streets and cheering. And I just thought that was so cool. Sometimes we, younger people take older people for granted, and we may kind of make jokes about the older people in the hobby, but we can learn so much from, the people that have been in the hobby for so long, not just
Mhm.
about, amateur radio and technology, but
Life.
just from life in general and their life experiences. And I had sent a picture of the last Pokey breakfast. I don't know how I can change my screen share to share that if I can.
Just kill it and then open it up in like Windows photo viewer.
But yeah, so I think I had mentioned at one point
I'll
that,
grab it while you do
we
it.
should have your older members of your clubs um write down their experiences, write down their stories so that you can share that. Um, there we go. There's the
Yep.
pokey breakfast picture. So, have the people in your clubs write down, some stories and experiences about their time in amateur radio, their time in the club. Like this club that we are in, the Pocahontas Amateur Radio Club, has been a club since like at least the 1950s, and this net that we are on has been going on, as far as anyone knows, every day since like the 1960s,
Wow.
as far back as anyone can remember. So this is the last time we had a pokey breakfast. You can see me there, and Bud is down there in the kind of maroon shirt. The gentleman next to him, I believe his name is Don. he had brought like binders of pictures of the Pocahontas Amateur Radio Club going back to like the 1940s
Mhm.
or 1950s. So, if you have a longtime club like that, I really encourage you to get those older members to write down some of the club history and club stories and like, meet up, have breakfasts, because you never know when the last time is that, you're going to see someone. You never know when their last check-in is going to be.
Yep.
This was completely unexpected out of the blue. He wasn't sick. It was like one day he was there, the next day he was gone. So I
Yeah.
take my hat off to you, bud. And hopefully you're up there doing your CW, your QRP, and he's probably running the net up in heaven right now.
Mhm. Or he's doing Spark Gap, one of the two. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's kind of funny. Real short story. I had joined my club here locally, and long story short, we had a member who had held on to 50 years worth of everything in the club, like in 3 totes, and he put out a thing saying, "Hey, I'm just going to get rid of these," and I'm like, "You are not going to get rid of those." Like, he's like, "They've just been collecting dust," and I was like, "No, give them to me." And this is during COVID. I spent literally 3 months scanning it all and digitizing it because you never know. And it was like some great history stuff, and it was like, I it just kind of irked me. It's like, they're going to throw this all away. Those are great memories, great stories. I mean, there were definitely some challenges and stuff like that in it, but that's exactly what what you just alluded to is like capturing that stuff is stuff you want to pass on to the next generation, because we all hear that there's no more mentors out there, but they're all right there. They're all sitting at the table. They just need to take a little time and pass that stuff on. And you guys, we're all young. You guys are still mentors, so keep it doing yourself there, and keep help other new hams out there, because you have all of the knowledge that you've learned. Pass that on too as well. Keep it going.
So I'm gonna post in chat right now. I'm gonna post a link to Bud's obituary. So if even if you didn't know him as a member of the ham radio community and the Hamily, maybe look back in your log. Who knows? You might have a contact with him. If
Yep.
anyone wants to just drop a message of condolence to his family, I'm sure they would appreciate that, because for myself, who as you guys all know, I lost my husband very suddenly. It really meant a lot to me to see those messages from people that I had never even met, that knew my husband through his hiking forums and his different circle of friends. So I'm sure that would mean a lot to the family to see messages that Bud will be thought of and remembered by the ham community for a long time.
Totally. Very much so. All right. Well, uh, uh, sorry, I was going to click on something here. Yeah, Shannon, definitely take time for granted. Definitely take the time, especially whether you're out doing POTAs, even when you're out doing POTAs, just to have conversations with people. You'll never know who you meet, who you talk to, who you can impact. All right. Okay. So with that, let's jump over to the last one here. Let me, you want to kill? There we go. Which was, I was just going to add it here, and I couldn't remember if I crashed this or not. Here we go. All right. So the next thing is, there we go. Wow, this is a small little image here. So we're going to have Mike on in a bit, but, he's already been on as a usual member of Brew and Activate here. But for those that have been on my channel, those that are members and whatnot, know I've been doing the vlogging every day for the next 52 days, the 5-2 challenge. This has been a freaking awesome, fun event. And I would say, first and foremost, thanks for Mike putting together. I'm not taking credit for it. He came up with this idea, and after struggling and wrestling with it for a while, he decided to finally release it out into the wild, and get people to start doing it. And it's been taken off here, especially for me, because I just decided that I was going to try for the next 52 days, and part of that was going to be just a simple vlog of me spending 10 minutes calling CQ out in 5-2. And I can't tell you the resounding success that I've had. I mean, I've a couple of contacts here and there. Yesterday I had one, so I have no idea what my next 50 some odd days are going to look like, but in essence, I'm having fun and enjoying it. So I'm going to encourage you guys to do it. If you haven't picked up VHF and UHF because, either 5.2 is quiet or, the repeaters are dead or whatever, grab your HT, grab, your mobile in your car, go out for a drive in the weekends and just call out CQ on 5.2 and see who you pick up. Let's start making 5.2 alive again. Let's stop treating it like it's an emergency channel only. Let's just really start to have some fun with it. Make contacts with folks. There's no logging. There's no, contest style stuff. And if you want to learn more about it, obviously the link's in the chat there for Mike's video there. He says it best and how you can get involved. But it's just simple as just picking up your mic, calling CQ, seeing who you can talk to, make a new contact with somebody, and just have fun playing radio on those bands. So check that out. If you want to see some of the, past contacts that I've made, you can always head over to my channel, check that out. But there's many other people out there doing some great videos. And if you're so inclined and you want to share your story, head over to Mike's channel, and that's N2MAK. And share your latest contact with somebody. And I've been getting a few myself. I've been trying to share that on, some of the videos that I do. And it's just really cool to see that people that are like, oh, wow, I never knew 5.2 was alive, and there are people out there. There's a lot more listeners than folks that talk. Let's kind of flip that onto here and try it to make it the opposite. So, I've been having fun with that. Keeping that going. I'm hoping anybody there in the chat there doing the 5.2 challenge. I know I saw Mike in there and Tortoise. I've talked to those guys a little bit. They've been doing it a little bit. If you are, put a thumbs up there. Let us know that you're doing it. And heck, if you got a great story, head over to Brew Activate. There's a channel over there called the 5.2 Simplex Challenge. Share your story there. I mean, we're gonna have some fun with it at the very end. Mike's gonna do a live stream. We're gonna do a fun giveaway. And so there's gonna be a lot of people involved in that, doing some really cool stuff. So
that reminds me of, the story that I've told on here before. I think it was when I went to the first world, or actually, no, it was the Battle for the Airfield at the American Heritage Museum. And I brought my Baofeng with me and I had it on 14652. And I just, kind of walked around, and every once in a while I would, call out KC10HT listening. And somebody ended up coming back to me that was someone that was from New Hampshire, I think he was. He was
wow.
reenacting for the German side of the World War II reenactment event. And so I ended up meeting up with him in person after the battle reenactment had concluded, and he was back at his camp. And gave him an eyeball QSO card and a sticker and had a little chat with him. And he was like, oh, I was debating on bringing the radio and I wasn't sure if I was going to hear anyone. And so I'm glad he did. I'm sure he's glad he did. And I think that's, a good idea, to, carry a handy talkie with you. Leave it on 14652. Don't just call out once, because you don't know if the other people might not have their radio on yet. They might not have gotten there yet. They might miss your call because they could be talking to someone else. So, call out every once in a while, throw out your call sign, let them know that you're listening. And if you hear someone, talking or hear someone come back, then, come back to them and start a conversation and say hi.
Yep.
You never know when you might make a new friend.
Yep,
Add a new member to your family.
Yep, 100%. And, as she was saying, I did finally buy a Baofeng. I have a Baofeng in my possession. It is mine. It's not on loan. I am carrying this around for the next 52 days with me like I carry around my smartphone. So we'll see how it goes.
You did have it on yesterday at HRO, I will say. It was on your belt. Whether or not it was on, I don't know.
I didn't turn it on just because we were in HRO, and it's like being in church. You don't you put yourself on mute.
But, and I didn't even have my Baofeng with me, but my Baofeng, I never put the belt clip on because I'm like, I'm a girl. I don't wear a belt. But now it's like annoying because I don't have anywhere to put it. Plus, it has that really long signal stick antenna, which is very good, but it's also like poke someone in the eye. But I do have the Cadillac of ham radios, handy talkies. I have a Kenwood THD 74. which I don't use it that often only because the battery dies so fast. So
Mm.
if anyone knows how I can get a replacement battery or a bigger battery for a Kenwood THD 74, hit me up in the chat and let me know.
You heard it here. On it. So, excuse me. So yeah, good deal. Looking to see a whole lot more contacts. It's funny. Chris, Lost Nation Radio was in the chat there a little bit. He texted me yesterday. He was like, "Dude, where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm in the middle of a work day. I was working with a client." He's just like, "Aren't you calling on 5.2?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't. I'm in a big giant building." He's like, "Oh man, I'm on the top of Killington, Vermont." I'm like, dude, like that would have been perfect 5.2 contact. That's literally almost a 5,000 footer mountain in the middle of Vermont. And to be able to hit him down here would have been one for the books for sure. So, well, hopefully one day we'll get around to, maybe scheduling that sked to happen. But either way, take it out. You might get surprised. You'll be very surprised, who's out there listening and who actually might want to be able to hit that PTT to have a quick conversation and say hello. So, very cool. Yeah, Tortoise, thanks for the power tip there, my friend. Who turns their power down on their radio? What are you, nuts?
Yeah, full power all the time.
Yes, and twice on Sunday.
Does the Kenwood THD 74 even have different power settings? I don't know.
It does.
I'll have to explore.
Isn't there a song that says "Turn the power down for what"? Something like that.
Turn down for what?
Exactly. There you go. All right. Well, we've got, we're going to be going a little long today.
Maybe that's a new t-shirt design.
What did I tell you last week? But the list is just so long, I'll never get to it. So you got an idea, you workshop it. Well, let's get back to it.
I already gave you. So
that one I can do because I have the font.
Listen, we're never going to get to the show topic today, just so you know.
No.
But we did come up with a new t-shirt idea today. So since we were talking about Dunkin' earlier and we're talking about how RFK Jr. wants to cancel Dunkin' Donuts for having too many sugary drinks, in protest, you heard it here first, folks. Brew Activate is going to make a shirt that says POTA runs on Dunkin'.
On Dunkin'. In the font.
And yes, so we need to wear this in solidarity for Dunkin' Donuts to not be canceled in Massachusetts for having too many sugary drinks.
100%. Love it. Bring me my sugar and bring me in mass quantities and coffee. So I grew up on coffee. It literally runs in my veins. I can't do anything less. If I don't have it, I have problems. Shakes and all of this stuff above. But that's just part of, being a Bostonian. All right. Well, let's dive into our lovely POTA Minute here. All right, this is the POTA Minute. One small POTA idea, one real observation, about 60 seconds just to get you thinking, just to switch gears up here today. There's no right answer. We just want to talk about stuff you start noticing after a few activations or maybe a few hundred hunts. You never know. If this has happened to you, say so in the chat. Let me know. If you've done it, if you could do it differently, let me know, and that's even better. So this is today's POTA Minute, enjoying slower activations. And I'm going to talk in a monotone voice today. No. So not every activation needs a pileup, although that's all we talk about. I know you're just going to have a cornea and pass out. So someone dial 911. So as I finish this, we can, get her help. Slower activations give you time to experiment, adjust, and enjoy the park. If you ever sat back and thought, this is nice, that activation did its job. That's where I'm going to leave it. I'm warming up to this idea. Like, I know Shannon just, almost had a conniption and fell over that, the whole pileup is what we all strive for. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun opportunity to have a break in between and enjoy the activation and play around with something you might not, play around with on your radio because you were just in the middle of drinking from the fire hose. So, if you haven't tried it, try it. Let me know. Report back. Tell us. Maybe you have. And if you have, anybody in the chat, can you relate? we'll leave it out there. I'm curious to see how people think about that. Drop a yup, I am, I have, and I will, and will continue. Or not. Maybe you want to try it. Put it on your bucket list to try it. We're gonna put a pause there. Let that digest. All right, back to our reaction here. So, all right, cool. We are plugging away here. I think, we're going to kind of dive into our topic this morning. So hopefully if you're here and you are, the topic caught your eye, your eye there a little bit and you're like, well, what the heck is this SO2R idea? Well, we're going to dive into something that I've kind of been tossing around a little bit, that I feel like, may be something to explore. I'm always about improving my operations. I like to experiment. I like to be able to learn how to use my equipment better. And so I'm always kind of thinking along those lines. And so we've spent a good chunk of time the last couple of weeks talking about hunters. And the week before that, we kind of talked a little bit about some of your radios and mics and, how to use some of the, basic functions of those radios. So we're going to kind of ramp this up a little bit. We're going to talk SO2R today. And so those that might know it, because Shannon, surprised me. I didn't know she didn't know what the SO2R stood for. We're going to dive into SO2R and POTA. I heard this, I can't remember if I heard it on HRCC one time or some other, stream. Someone was talking about, doing SO2R for POTA. And I think, at the time it kind of was just like, yeah, we'll put a pin in that and let's not talk about it. But I'm thinking, maybe it's a genius move or it could be absolute chaos. Who knows? Either way. So my question, I guess, to you guys is, have you ever been in a POTA pileup and thought, heck, this activation needs more radios? I'm waiting for the resounding crickets because I'm sure it's not that way.
I will say again what I said in chat for those people that, were not here earlier is I could see it working if you had one radio going on 14652, if we want to talk about the 5.2 simplex challenge, and then you have one radio on HF.
Yeah, that could definitely do it. We're going to dive into that a little bit there. So for those that don't know what SO2R is as an acronym, it stands for single op, two radios. So that's you as the operator on a picnic bench at a park with two radios in front of you, operating two separate antennas with filters and a whole bunch of other stuff that we'll kind of dive into a little bit, and managing that whole entire chaotic situation for the benefit of being able to hunt and the benefit of being able to run an activation or be able to run different modes. You never know. So we're going to kind of shape this out a little bit. We're going to kind of talk about what it means, what it might include, and talk about it in the context of, stealing a page from the contesting world, but to apply it in the POTA world, not as a contest. Now, I'm going to frame this very early on. So those that are, already pitchforks and torches, we're not talking contesting here. POTA is not contesting. It never will be. It never can be. We did it a little bit. We all decided that, we enjoy POTA for what it's worth. And it's all different for all of us at different, levels. But it's not a contest. You're not there submitting your logs. You're not there looking for, how many, team points you can kind of get and how many multis you can get out of the whole process. There is a paper chasing component to it, but that's something you don't have to do. It's kind of just automatically there and available to you. So put a pin in that one. Let's just kind of dive into it here a little bit. So let's get over to our lovely slides here this morning. Going here. So, all right. What we want to do? Any things in the questions while I set up here real quick that you want to go through in the chat there, Shannon?
No, just Tortoise says that he's invading the Northeast and he wants us to POTA with him later today. So
yeah. He asked me.
In case you missed that. Bricker thinks that I should do calligraphy while paper logging on POTA activations. So yeah, let me just grab that, that quill pen and that parchment.
Feather. Go feather.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get right on that. He said, to slow down and train myself to remain calm. Keep keep calm and POTA
Yeah,
on.
yep.
Keep calm and paper log.
Yes,
2 more
she was
shirt
at HR.
ideas.
And oh my gosh, we're gonna be drowning in t-shirt ideas. Help me. We have to have a t-shirt of me drowning in t-shirts. So, um, all right. Well, so as we touched base a little bit here, yeah, is this an idea? Is this something that we can maybe get our heads around and kind of try? So let's talk about it in the context here a little bit. So what does that kind of look like? Well, as I mentioned, it's two radios, two separate frequencies, the same operator. And you might be bouncing between, say a CQ on one radio and search and pouncing and hunting on the other. And it requires a little bit of heavy automation in the sense of mostly you as the person managing, all of that craziness all going on. But I'm going to put the caveat out there that it is possible to do in a park. I mean, there's nothing in the rules that says we can't. There's nothing that, we can't do multiple different bands or different modes. We just have to obviously abide by, some obviously basic ham radio, exchange, as well as, the ham radio rules of conduct and so forth and so on. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what, this can kind of play out as a scenario here. And a few of you were definitely saying that you use 5.2 when you're doing POTA activations, and that is definitely a viable option, and we're going to kind of touch into that a little bit more. But from a standpoint, you can have two separate radios, so you can have an 891 and a 705. You can have two QRP radios. Whatever you've got in your stable is what you're going to bring with you. And you're going to set it up appropriately with the batteries and antennas. And there's some technical components you probably want to include in that just to make the experience a little bit more easier so you don't desense radios and you don't have too much of a challenge trying to work a lot of the HF bands. But from a standpoint, here's kind of the four scenarios that I kind of thought of. First one's obviously the simple one. You're on 20 meters on one radio, you're on 40 in the other, and you're doing 20-meter CQ, doing your activation, and then the other one you're just doing a hunting, and that works really well in, say, like the middle of the day. So we were talking about propagation a couple of episodes before, and just understanding all of that. In the middle of the day, 20 is really good. 40 might be better for more local stuff. End of the day, like I know when Julie and Vaughn do their end of day, kind of dinner live streams for POTA when they activate, they find they start in 20 and then they roll right to 40 because 40 tends to be better in the evening hours. Now, in that scenario, they can have a separate radio and they can run 20 over there to work a lot of the locals, or they can go to, a work band, or they can do a couple of different, other bands there to kind of, split the difference. And, in their case, since both of them are operating, they kind of break the SO2R rule. But in essence, you can always adjust and navigate that a little differently. That is definitely one simple, easy scenario. Now, that's probably, to say it's simple is kind of just pushing the envelope there a little bit, because I don't know about you, but we all strive for the POTA, we all strive for the pile up. And if you're in the middle of a activation, do you find that you have time to have a conversation or do something else in that process? Like, I mean, I know, Shannon, you paper log, so this will be a little harder process for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless obviously if I'm doing like FT8 or FT4, right, it automatically logs for you. So I'm not
Yep.
doing paper logging for digital modes.
Mhm.
But for voice, then yeah, I'm doing paper logs. So, especially if you're on one band, on one radio, and another band on another radio, what I usually do when I'm paper logging, right, is especially if I'm calling CQ, I'm not switching frequencies. So
Mhm.
I just, I don't write the date every time. I write the date once at the top.
Yep.
And I don't write the time every time. I just write the time, every 5 calls, or, every 5 minutes or so, I update the time on my log. And then same thing with the frequency. I just write the frequency once, and, I only write it again if I've changed frequency, so I know all those contacts are on that frequency. Now, if I'm trying to switch back and forth between two different radios, then I'm like, okay, this one was on 20 meters, this one was on 40 meters, this one was on 20, this one was
Yep.
that sounds like it's getting a little confusing for my brain.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise you doing two,
I'd have to have 2
activations.
separate logs, actually. That might be a way to get
Now
around
you have
that.
to be ambidextrous and have to write with both hands, and you might want to get AI involved.
What hand is gonna do the microphone, though?
And then you could put 2 feet in there, and one can control the PTT on one mic, and the other, so yeah, this could get really crazy fast. But I would say in that scenario, since you're doing paper logging, having a one main radio as your, say, activation would be the logging, and then the other radio you can do search and pounce. And all search and pounces, this is exactly what we do as activators. With maybe your MO is you get to a park, and before you officially activate, you kind of scroll up the band and try to make park to parks. You can do that on that second radio, and it's an easier, say, bite of the elephant to swallow, because you don't have to run 2 activations from 2 separate bands in 2 crazy, ways and try to do logging. You can, start, your activation on the main radio. And if you get to a lull or things quiet down, you can spin the dial on the other one a little bit and, find, hey, yeah, I've got a park to park out there. And, we all know that you yell park to park, you usually get to the front of the line. And so something like that is just a matter of changing your mindset of logging, your park to park in the log for, whatever. But it could be doable. In essence, it's allowing you to, kind of stretch your contacts out further. And, if you find that all of a sudden one band gets better than the other, you're already posed to operate on 40 if that's on the other radio. And you can switch your activation in QSY and start an activation over there and search and pounce on 20. So you've got a kind of a balance there. And for some of those radios, like say a 705, or maybe if you're bringing a DX10 or, a 710 out there, you have that capability built in with the dual VFOs. So you can kind of play that game in that radio a little bit and, kind of see what, benefit you can get out of trying that scenario out for you. The next kind of the next option here is working 2 bands simultaneously. Now, this one is a little bit more challenging. This would make Shannon go nuts and freak out because she paper logs. But if you can run 2 separate laptops and do data logging or electronic logging, this might be a little bit easier and might be more of a challenge. I don't know if I'm ready even for myself to want to do 2 activations simultaneously, 2 bands. It can be a little challenging. You might have to maybe just search and pounce only one mode versus doing a CQ on both bands. But I'd be curious. I haven't seen videos, and this is kind of why I brought the topic here, is I haven't seen many POTA videos out there that anybody's doing this. If you've got a link, or you got some, you've seen some folks post this online, I'd love to see it. Send it to me, post it over on our Discord there. Our Discord is pinned at the very top. So if you want to be part of that, just click that link at the top of the chat there and come be part of that. I'd love to see this and see it in action to see how well that activator did. The other 2 modes, this is kind of a little easier for us to chew on, and Shannon alluded this a little earlier, is you can do voice and digital split. This is very easy to do. Second radio, if you definitely have 2 separate radios, you can set up a digital station only, and then your sideband station for your activation. And 9 times out of 10, I know about you, when people go do digital only, FT8, FT4, or now FT2, excuse me, bottom line is it's boring, and I get it. I mean, you're not talking to anybody, you're not really doing a whole lot, but you combine that with maybe running an activation on sideband or CW, then you might actually have a perfect storm, as they say. So, try something like that. The hardest thing I think in this process would be setting up your FT8 digital station in a way that doesn't, get affected by interference, but that you can sort of automate, a little bit of that in terms of the contacts to keep that stuff flowing. But you're not, you've got a minute and a half if you're doing FT8 before you get to the next contact. And that might be even longer if you can't really make the contact with the person you're trying to make contact with because they're, either far out of reach or they're just too weak in the noise, that type of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, is that something you could, you consider?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, now that you mention it, I haven't done it on POTA, but I have done SO2R single op 2 radios
At home?
at home using my 2 different call signs. So I had, my home station running FT8 out in the living room on the laptop, and I was running FT8 remotely to the station, in the UK using my UK call sign. So I've done SO2R, and then I run back and forth between the two computers to, what I was doing actually was I was trying to make contact with myself. As crazy as that sounds, I was trying to make contact with my own call sign. And I did sort of manage to do it. I think it went like one way and it confirmed and went through all the way in one direction, but then in the other direction, it didn't get the last like 7-3, so it didn't count it as being logged.
Mhm.
But that was a great achievement for me. It's like high-fiving yourself, right?
This sounds like an ESPCA message. Shannon, please take 5 minutes out of your day. Make a contact with Shannon. She's lonely. It's like, come on. No, I get it. That's a cool feat in alone that you can hear. Like, we all deal with it. Like, we want to hear our audio. We'll throw a web SDR on to see how we sound when we're calling kind of CQ, that type of stuff, or record our, audio. So it's kind of the same, mindset. So good for you.
But
That's awesome.
so to bring up something that was said in chat from LB4FH, and I think I already showed it once,
Kajil.
but
Yep.
to show it again, that you need the good bandpass filters, right? That is one thing. And, we experienced that on, even at the 24-hour POTA, right? I mean, we were many ops with many radios.
Mhm.
That one radio is causing interference to the other depending on what band you are. So whenever you have multiple radios and multiple antennas, really is what the problem is. You need to have that, proper separation of the antennas, or you need to have the bandpass filters to stop the interference.
I must have sent my notes out way earlier because we're going to get into that. So very cool stuff. Yeah, we won't leave the equipment side out of it because I think that's important for sure. But yeah, 100%. That's a key ingredient in this working very well. All right. So the last one, obviously, Shannon alluded to and mentioned in some of her setup there is that, yeah, you can run VHF on one side and you can run HF on the other. I've done that both in my truck when I'm, parked and operating at a park, run 14652 on my VHF UHS setup and call CQ on that. And then, I'll run an HF activation on my 891 in the truck on the ATAS, or, run it off the external antenna off the bumper mount or whatever. And so there are those options, and that is much, I'd say, a little easier to do than say an HF to HF kind of thing, or an HF to digital, or sideband to digital. There's a little bit of a challenge, obviously, and there's some very well seasoned folks here in the chat, and I appreciate all the feedback. To be able to make that work really well and not make you frustrated. So let's kind of dive into that now at this point. So one thing actually I wanted to align with this one that I think is kind of important, and this is the contest mindset for those that do a lot of contesting. Contesting is all about rate, all about like making contacts as fast as you can, hitting your multipliers, and basically increasing that number every time you kind of do the activation. And that's not a bad thing. But that's contesting as a whole. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So the idea is that, and we talked about this as a hunter and how the activator, kind of symbiotic relationship works. The idea of the activator controlling the rhythm and the process of their activation plays very well into this. So you don't have to run at a fast rate. You can control the rhythm. You can control how you take calls, that type of stuff, when you put a pause in, all of those things. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, if I start this off, I'm going to be drinking from the fire hose forever, and then I'm going to just end up missing contacts, and I'm not going to be able to get them in the log, and all of these things start to creep in. This isn't about rate. So taking a stab at this is very doable, but doing a little planning with the idea that you also have a say in how that process works, how you run the bands, how you call CQ on certain ones, do search and pounce on the other, running those two bands simultaneously. When you're getting into VHF and HF, yeah, that makes that gap even wider, because we all know, and doing the 5-2 challenge, 5.2 or other bands that you can call CQ on, in terms of simplex, if you're doing simplex, FM, that you've got enough time in between to put pauses and still be able to handle the HF kind of congestion, because we all strive to be on HF because HF is alive and very active a lot of times, especially when you're being the activator yourself. So you can kind of deal with the delicate balance. So all about that. Just remember, it's not about rate. It's not about throughput. It's not how efficient you are. It's learning how to be able to deal with that balance and manage the activation the way you see it. All right, let's finally get into what will we actually bring, because this is kind of obviously important in this mix. The answer isn't, I'll just bring 2 radios. As I like to say, slow down there, Maverick. We know what happened to Goose. So the idea is, a little forethought, a little planning in this process is going to go a long way, because yeah, you can bring a 100 amp hour battery and run 2 radios off of it, but that'll drain that 100 amp hour battery right to the ground very fast and very quickly. So you got to kind of think of like, okay, what do I have to include in, and Shannon, I'm going to say this, my POTA wagon when I pull this with me, because you're going to need a POTA wagon for something like this. This is not like a backpack kind of thing, and bring the appropriate batteries, the antennas, the filtering that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And so I kind of want to give you a couple examples of what that might look like for real world stuff. So first one is obviously we're talking 2 QRP rigs. And I said this a little earlier. So if you've got maybe a KX2 or a KX3, you can pair that with an ICOM 7300. And I just noticed that the lovely AI, added a 1 to the 7300. So that's a new model radio that you haven't heard of yet. So you might want to check it out. It's new. It's only available on n1jur.com.
We're future proofing.
Or super proof. Exactly right. And, pairing it with, say, maybe an 891, a 7300, a 710. So you have that balance of, QRP style radio running at a lower power. And then you have your 100-watt radio for, maybe doing that CQ call. But the idea is, not trying to minimize what you're bringing, because this is not that type of exercise. You really want to bring the appropriate amount of gear with you when it comes to supporting those radios, because you're going to have a horrible experience at the end of it, because your battery is going to get chewed up. You're going to get, front end interference from, say, the QRP radio from your 100-watt radio if you're not running appropriate filtering, or maybe you've got a VHF rig that you got to get set up appropriately for, its own battery, and understanding what it is in terms of its, standby charge or draw versus, when it transmits kind of thing. Those things you have to understand to outfit yourself with the appropriate setup in a way. Now, that does kind of help a little bit, or make it a little easier if you've got, some money to throw at the problem. Buying a 320 amp hour battery for something like this, they are coming down in size and they're still giving you enough power. You could do an SO2R pretty easily with that size battery with 200-watt rigs, and be able to manage it appropriately and just dial down power if you need to, and still be able to get like a good 4 or 5 hours of activation on a 320 amp hour battery. So, if you can do something like that, that's great. If not, use what's in your stable, use what you got already, and try to match it up appropriately and test it out before you get out there and do that. Next thing, excuse me, 2 antennas, or the option of antennas. This is going to be kind of an interesting one, because this kind of ties into placement, what you have, what you're running in terms of style of antenna, and whether or not you're running kind of, a resident or non-type of resident. Because if you're running non-resident, you don't have a built-in tuner, you're going to have another component you're bringing with you for that capability. And you had to kind of build this out. So I'm throwing this out here for the purposes to get you thinking, because in essence, you're going to have to do a little homework and write this stuff out and give yourself kind of like a whiteboard session to talk about of what would be the ultimate setup for you to be able to bring with you. I mean, anything kind of like, we're going to talk about some of the antennas, but Shannon, anything coming to mind as you're kind of thinking as I'm talking about it?
Well, I'm just thinking, we all love the saying 1 is none, right?
2, yeah.
And 2 is 1. Well, if you're bringing 2 radios, it's kind of like 2 is none, 3 is 1. So it's like you gotta, almost bring 3 of everything or 4 of everything just to make sure that you're not forgetting anything and that you have everything that you need. So you're really almost, quadrupling your POTA power,
Yeah.
your POTA load, when it comes to, trying to run, especially if you're trying to do something like 2 really complete rigs, right? I mean, if you're
Yep.
bringing something like, a actual radio and then a handy talkie for doing, the 2 meters, that, certainly, lightens your load a little bit.
Yeah.
Or,
100%.
or when you're working, if you have, like I have radios that are permanently installed in my car and then, I, do the POTA, from the car, then,
Mm.
I always have that FTM 500 that I can fire up if I want to do, the 2 meter or 70 centimeter simplex.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's thinking through that process and just kind of saying it out loud might help a lot and go a long way versus just kind of like, oh, I'll just wing it because that this is going to be a big failure moment if you find that, oh, like I'm missing whatever, fill in the blank, and you realize that, oh, it's going to ruin part of the activation. So you have to kind of scramble to recover. But obviously, some of those antennas, I think we very much already are familiar with. Running resonant. We all know resonant antennas are very versatile. They're already tuned. They're already ready to go, kind of out of the box for us for the bands that they're cut for. So having that capability, mixing it up, bringing, say, a vertical like a Wolf River coil or a Mad Dog coil, and setting that up, and then running a end-fed wire antenna like a Reliance or a Pactena or whatever radio you want, or if you can distance yourself enough, and you want to run 2 verticals, those capabilities are there. And you just kind of put some thought around it, because then you got to think about coax, you got to think about chokes, you got to think about filters, and the list kind of grows exponentially there. And the one thing that we didn't even allude to, I mean, are you going to do headphones? And if you're going to do headphones, how are you going to do that? You're going to do 1 ear here, 1 ear there? Are you going to do a switching mechanism? Are you not going to run 2 headphones and you're going to try to listen between 2 radios? How are you going to handle the mics? I mean, are you going to just do 2 separate mics? All of those things kind of, grow big time. And like, there are things like Schmitty's, why am I forgetting the interconnect headset standard? Oh my gosh, help me out there in the chat. The OHIS, there we go. That's what I was thinking. The Open Headset Interconnect Standard allows you to interface multiple radios to one headset, one microphone kind of thing. You might want to think about something like that. I mean, that's like major overkill, but it might sufficiently make the 2, say, sideband, search and pounce and CQ a little easier to manage, especially if you got a set of headphones. So there are things out there. I know, like I watched Julian Vaughn's POTA Power when they do, they have dual mics when Vaughn and Julie are activating, so they don't have to throw the mic at each other and that whole thing. They just basically use a nice little box in the middle that kind of manages all that with one radio. You can definitely kind of look into those types of scenarios and think about putting that together. Other things, foot switch. Do you want to make things easier? Do you want to just, key up the microphone? You got to kind of think those things through a little bit. And you obviously want to think it in a way that's going to be efficient, and what radio you're on when you're transmitting versus like, having, one microphone and one pair of headphones split between 2. When you key up, you don't want to be keying up on a radio you're doing search and pounce, calling CQ, and you don't want to be, doing search and pounce on a radio everyone's expecting you to call as an activator. So that's kind of where the chaos can kind of ensue very quickly when you're in the midst of it, and trying to juggle that is going to be a challenge for sure. So kind of thinking around those are definitely some good food for thought. All right. So we kind of touched on a little bit of this one. You can get into some headphone switching. We talked about, being honest with yourself. You really want to make sure you do a little forethought and a little planning around that one. All right, so let's talk about power considerations. We obviously all know that you just can't bring one 20 amp hour battery and expect two radios to, you know, both play nice and efficiently slurp the battery. You got to think about how you're going to deal with voltage draw, current draw, voltage stability, heat, especially if you're in the summertime. We all know that heat does not bode well for radios, especially if they're sitting directly in the sun. Same thing goes with batteries. So you got to kind of plan that a little bit in terms of the format and how you lay it all out and what you have for coverage. You really want to make sure you're not transmitting, and back to that whole point, transmitting on the wrong radio, because if you're set up to do that and you do it incorrectly, you're going to cause a little confusion for both the activators and the hunters that you're, or you being the hunter. So putting a little thought around that, like I keep stressing, is important for this process. So, all right, the next one, and Shannon kind of was talking about her logging experience and what she would kind of do with this one. But when you're doing SO2R, you got to come up with a good logging experience. And this is kind of where digital logging, or at least electronic logging, is going to come into play more. And you can kind of do this. I wish there was a way that you could, on one laptop, control multiple cat connections or cat control. I don't think that's a possibility quite yet, unless you're running a little bit more of the complex, like DX. I can't remember. There's a few pieces of software that are a little bit more expensive that allow you to control multiple radio interfaces. But I don't think like the Hammers or the Polos have those capabilities. They have obviously single radio capabilities, but you might not be able to do dual radios. So you might have to think about, like, okay, I'm going to split logging into two things. When maybe if you're running digital on one, like Shannon already mentioned, you don't have to have logging because WSJTX logs locally. So you can just slurp that log out later and merge that into your existing log. But if you want to run, some logging packages, you got to build that connectivity in through WSJTX and your logger and then export and all the other stuff. So you got to kind of play around with that. But then the last one is kind of, you want to make sure your logging, and Shannon said this earlier, is that, you got your right frequencies, you get the right modes, you get the right contact call signs in there. And that's where kind of like the QRZ verification helps a lot. So you streamline that, and you're not, copying the wrong call or copying an incorrect call, so you can't get the QSO in the log. And how you balance all that, well, I'm going to kind of leave that up to you, because that's a challenge to every operator's operating style. All right. So any craziness you want to add to that, Shannon?
Yeah, Julie was talking about having a foot switch for each radio. And I have to say, if you guys have never tried operating with a foot switch, I thought that it was going to be like completely unnecessary and overkill. And then I went to W1AW and I, operated the station there, and they have foot switches on all of their radios. And you have the Heil Pro 7 headsets. One of their radios has the pink Heil Pro 7 headsets that were like limited edition that they will never release again. And I wish they would, because I would totally buy them if I could. But it was just so cool to have both your hands free and be able to use the foot switch. And you have to digital log there, blah. But that's okay, because I had both my hands so I could type on the keyboard, because at least you're on the computer. That's the part of digital logging that I don't really like, is like if you're trying to do it on your phone, it's just the phone is so small.
It can be.
And, I've been thinking about the possibility of getting a, new to me laptop for doing, digital logging, probably not all the time, because you will take my ARRL logbook out of my...
See, it's disappearing. It's fading away. It's like Back to the Future. It's no longer needed.
You will pry this out of my cold, dead hands.
Yes, we will. We'll bury you with them.
But but like for the YLWWA event that is next week from March 9th to the 15th, so it's, right after International Women's Day, they're asking, that, or sort of requiring that you do digital log because they want real-time live logging on that Ham Award
The
website.
nerve of them.
I know, right? Same thing with like when I was doing K2H for the 13 colonies for the state of Massachusetts, they require that you do a digital log and submit it to them. So, there are times when digital logs are required. So, I do have my little Maestro Evolve 3 Jankopotamus thing, but that's okay for the digital logging, but it's kind of getting slow, so might want to upgrade a little bit to a slightly newer to me laptop.
All I have to say is Mavis Beacon is calling you. Start learning how to type better.
What do you mean?
You've never heard of Mavis Beacon? That's how everybody learns how to
Of
type.
course, I used to call her Mavis Bacon.
Yeah, it's probably the right pronunciation, but anyway.
No, I think her name is Mavis Beacon. But of course, listen, I had to do typing class in high school with actual typewriters, old man.
Old man, that's how I started. Please, come on. I had the IBM like you could, it was like almost like a teletype machine. It was so loud in that classroom. I was like, you had to come out of there with your ears ringing. You're like, oh my gosh, all of these kids typing. It's annoying. Like, let me go over to the computer lab where it's quieter. Oh, yes. Mavis Beacon. Taurus is right. So, yeah, those that cut their teeth on that will, have some very horrifying, childhood memories.
Listen, there was some game, I can't remember where it was, if it is on Steam or what, but it was like some zombie themed learning how to type game. It was called like typing of the Damned or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
To be damned.
But it was awesome.
I would remember Mavis Beacon for a little bit in the computer lab, and then I'd be like, I'm done with this, and then we go over and play Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. So that predates me. That's fine.
Typing of the Dead. That's what it was. I'm posting the link in chat now for all of you 40-something video game nerds.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we invented video games. Pong was our thing. All right. So, yeah. So you're going to have to kind of, juggle the max. And Julie was mentioned about the foot switch stuff. The only thing with the foot switch that kind of scares me is that you might have to buy one of those double pedals and know like brake and gas kind of thing. So, you're pressing and PTTing the right radio. That can get very crazy fast. And if you're around here doing that in the middle of mud season, you definitely don't want to put your foot switch on the ground. You want to keep that away. That'll be pretty gross.
Listen, if you ever saw the episode of I Love Lucy where like I think Fred was trying to teach Lucy how to drive or something like that, they had like 2 cans of like beans and corn. One was like the brake, one was the clutch, one was the gas. That reminds me of the multiple foot switches.
Isn't what the clutch? Don't you carry just around a clutch? Like, isn't that the thing now? No one knows how to clutch. No.
I don't know how to drive a manual transmission.
Wow.
car.
Yeah, I've taken both my kids out to do that on purpose. I borrowed one from my buddy, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna let you experience the world of doing running a standard, and I loved it. But and they suck after a while, especially when you commute around here in Boston. It's like not worth the effort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's funny. I saw a meme last night my wife threw at me. She's like, do you remember this? And she's like, it was you knew when you had to go to bed when you were a kid in the 80s when you heard the ending song to MASH? Like, do, 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 do. It was always like Dukes of Hazzard, MASH, and, then off to bed kind of thing. My dad had to watch it. It was just the way it goes.
That must have been before my time.
It was. So, 51, 40, whatever. Big gap. Okay. All right. So let's get on to, so this is something you're going to have to work out. This is, however you work this into your, work or workshop this into your logging process, you'll have to figure this out to minimize some of your headaches.
I just had a great idea.
Oh?
Bringing a manual typewriter into the field to log.
Do you understand how heavy that would be a load? Nevertheless, where are you going to get the power to power that thing? Because those
No,
things like
that's why
literally
manual
110.
manual typewriters don't need power.
Okay. So you're talking like early 30 kind of things, like you slide the register over
This
and you're like,
yes,
yeah,
this is why we have POTA wagons.
yes, for carrying around, then you might as well just
Listen,
like,
I might have to do this for the lols.
then do it. You pack your
Well,
Drake twins, put those in the cart, and get your Spark Gap key, all
if
set up. And
anyone out there has a manual typewriter, let me know so that we can get together. We're gonna make this a YouTube video.
we are okay, man. You're just piling the shit on, aren't
Maybe
you?
for the 24-hour POTA camp out, this year, 2025.
Hey, Tortoise, as you're planning that stuff out, make sure you create a small separate space over in the corner, and she can put her typewriters and Drake twins over there, and relive the old Roaring 20s. All right, and she'll be able to provide her own heat. That's for sure. That'll be no problem there with those things. Fire up the tubes. All right, so kind of one of the things I wanted to do is like, do you announce like you're doing an SO2R? I kind of think that this one is up to your own, decision-making process, because ultimately, yeah, it can overcomplicate your activation and really like get it off the rails fast. But you got to remember, a lot of like when we do POTA, hunters just know the rhythm already. And so they know an activation is an activation. And, a hunter is the people that they run into when they're trying to, make contact with the activators. So try to keep it as simple as possible. You don't have to tell people that you're doing it, because ultimately, I think by doing that, you're setting yourself up for a little bit of a failure. So think about it in the sense that, keep that part secret to you, your activation. Obviously, work the activation because that's important, because hunters are depending on those contacts and those things for whatever they're looking for, or however they're trying to activate, or however they're trying to log you. But don't let it mess up the pileup management, because I think that's a big thing. Ultimately, your activation, as we all know, is important because you are responsible for the logging. You are responsible for the submission. You are responsible to give credit to those that credit is due. So make that important and make that kind of the focus, and then everything else will kind of fall in line from there. So don't worry about, really trying to do the whole mission. Try to focus on one main key component, and then when you walk away, that is, what you want to think about. All right. So, yeah, should you actually try this is really kind of, I think, what we all want to think about here, is that if you have one of those, I don't know, I don't know best how to describe it. So we're just going to maybe you're a good candidate for this if you've done a lot of activations. If you just, you're activating a couple, days a week, you're getting out there, you're doing a lot of like Jabberjaws and Sean. Those two guys, they're out there like 2 or 3 times a week and twice on Sunday kind of thing. They're experienced activators. So they kind of know their gear well. They know how to activate. They know how to, deal with the scenarios that they put themselves in. And they're very comfortable managing those pileups and managing the conversations and the QSOs. And they have a very good acumen of how to log, paper, electronic, mix of both. All of that. They understand how to deal with RF. So if you fall in any one of those categories or all of those categories, then you're probably a good candidate for something like this. This might be something to stretch you a little bit, something to make you a better ham radio operator, a better POTA activator. All of those things that you're kind of like, you might feel like you're just like, oh, I know how to do this. I could do it with my eyes closed with one arm wrapped around my back kind of thing. Then you might want to pick this up. This might be something that would, maybe get you going. But if you're a glutton for punishment, I would say don't do this. But if you're a first-time activator, don't bite the big elephant, in one whole bite. This is not something you want to try first thing out of the bag. But if you're a contester and you have a good idea of how to do that stuff, yeah, it might be something you want to give it a try if you're trying to pick up POTA and learn that. It can definitely be chaotic. We've already kind of touched upon that a little bit. It can run into a lot of the, I forgot this. Oh, I need to go back and, I don't have this. I don't have bandpass filters. I don't have all of those components. And it can overwhelm someone pretty quickly. It is not, it's very unforgiving in the sense of how quickly it can happen to you and how fast a train can roll off the rails. So That's the co-ed naked POTA. And he has the one customized shirt because he had put a request when he wanted that he wanted the co-ed naked on the back because his beard was covering the front. So he's has the one shirt that has the custom configuration there. So he's wearing that proud for sure. Oh man, I'm gonna have to like. This is like the Ethel and Merman kind of show in between. Like, oh Archie, I don't know what we're doing here. We should have a small little blurb in the background that kind of pops up. I'm getting the wheels going here. All right, stop. So, just kind of consider that. Ultimately, you don't want to frustrate the hunters. You don't want to, create a log mess for yourself. And you want to definitely take this slow, especially if you haven't gotten enough of the activations under your belt. All right. So, last part here, and let's see if I'm with my slides here. If you want to do the try this approach, and so this is kind of the thing I'm thinking here. Try it first, like in a level set. And so if you're going to venture out and doing this, first do a level 1. Run one radio, kind of do this as a normal activation. Keep the second band maybe monitoring, a search and pounce or another frequency or another band. Bring your HT with you just to kind of start out, because ultimately there's no harm there. And if you bring your HT, maybe bring, a vertical for, your HT there so you can get out a little further. But simplify and add gradually. Try it a little bit here, or do like what I do, especially in the wintertime. I've got an HF radio in the truck already, and I have VHF, UHF. There's no other further involvement for there. I mean, the only thing I have to do is remember to bring a bigger battery so I can power HF so I'm not draining my truck battery. But I have that capability already built into my vehicle. So think in terms of those scenarios in your life that if you've already got those kind of things, you maybe have VHF, UH in the car already, well, throw HF in there. And now you've just increased, one more step closer to being SO2R. And then once you kind of get comfortable with that and feel all that out and understand how to log and get all of those under your belt, then try sticking yourself into jumping from band to band. Work different bands, working different modes on those bands. So, if you're running 5.2, call CQ on simplex, on 146.5.2 or, on the 70 centimeter band or whatever bands you have, the capabilities for with you. And then do search and pounce on HF on 20 or 10 or 15 or whatever band you're working there. And, keep alternating and learn, build the muscle memory is, I guess, what I'm getting at. And once you get comfortable with that and feeling out how you deal with, pile-ups and the lulls and switching between bands, then now start to introduce some of the bigger guns. Start to think about, how you can really, really ramp this up and how you can really add. But build. This is not a race. Nobody has to run out tomorrow and start doing this, although if you're equipped to do it, go for it. But try to build in that. And that does two things. One, helps you get a better operator, helps you understand your equipment, helps you have a little bit more fun with regular everyday activation. If you're you go out to do an activation every day and you're finding like, oh, I get the same hunters and I get the same, kind of number of QSOs in the log. And you're just looking for that little bit more excitement because the pileups aren't as exciting as they used to be. Well, try something like this. It definitely might give you that little edge. It might definitely invigorate you to kind of get out there and do that. And you could definitely start to incorporate some of the things like, 5.2 and all of the FM bands, or if maybe you've got a 9700, because I saw that in the chat there earlier, bring that along and try doing some VHF, UHF sideband. You never know. All of that is very doable, very easy to integrate. Just take your time. Anything in the chat there, Jewel? Or sorry, Shannon?
What did you just call me?
I saw Julie, and then my mouth just didn't, So
Wow.
anyway.
Okay.
I don't find wow, whatever.
Are you,
I'll screw it up tonight. I'm just practicing.
Are you drinking already?
Just water and coffee, my friend. The coffee just finally kicked in.
Right. So, no, Shannon and I are in there. We're talking about, different themed POTAs. So she's talking about having a pajama POTA party, which I think sounds like tons of fun. So now all these different ideas of like themed POTAs that you could do, right? So we could do like Halloween party POTA where we all wear costumes, or for those of you who are Disney nerds like me, which, no one is a Disney nerd like me.
I'd rather go to paper logging.
Um, Disney people have brought it upon themselves to do this thing called Dapper Day at Disney. So they have these set days where they all go to the parks and they like dress to the nines, usually in like vintage retro sort of styles. So we could, to balance out pajama POTA or co-ed naked POTA, we could have Dapper POTA where we all get all dressed up in our best and we go out and we do a POTA. That could be like our, April Easter POTA where,
It
you
could be.
gotta wear your Sunday best and POTA.
I would think we should up the ante, and basically, as you do your exchange, there's one more value that you have to throw in there to confirm that you are dapper enough, or you are a said pajama wearer, because I could lie. But all good. See, this is what I love about this community. We're always thinking outside the box. We're always trying to do something new. We're always trying to stretch how far we can go with ham radio. and sometimes in the wrong direction too, but all good. Oh no. Okay, here we go. It's starting to flow. All right. Well, let's kind of put some closing thoughts to this one real quick before it really turns into our evening hour episodes. I'm curious, again, the bottom line here for me is that you don't need more radios to be a better activator. We've talked about that several times, and we all know that, the way you get out to be better activators, keep practicing, keep getting out there, and experimenting. But, you want to make sure as you're experimenting, it's pushing that skill level. Like Shannon and I aren't like born as POTA activators, but we got out there, we tried, we learned, we failed hard, we failed fast, but we got back on, and change things up, tweak things a little bit, learn how to be a little bit better, learn how to eliminate extra stuff that's, a distraction in our activations to be better about what we do. And, I always joke around, but like when we did the 24-hour POTA, it was like, Shannon just jumped on there and it's like, we have control. I will take control. And she like literally, pushed, like, she didn't push people out. It was like literally all the guys stepped back and went, okay, she's got control. This is good. She's just going to get out there and activate and all good, and banged out contacts.
Well,
And then
it's
we all,
the radio was stuck on CW mode, and you guys didn't know how to get it out of CW filtering mode.
Don't blame me.
Because you guys didn't know how to use a FTDX10. So, I came over and I just helped you fix the filters.
Next year, the 24-hour Pro, I'm bringing my Flex just to confuse you.
No, don't. Flex is bad.
That a threat or a promise?
Flex is bad, but that is another show topic for another day. If you want to know why Flex is bad and why everyone should boycott Flex, join us in the Discord.
We're gonna go down that road outside of the radio, but anyway, I am aware of that 100%. Okay, all right. Well, there are people shouting out some radios there in the chat as I see it go by. Okay, so ultimately, this is just raising your level of maturity in POTA and ham radio, and making things, get you a little bit closer to learning more, get you a little closer to understanding propagation and understanding radios and understanding, how to incorporate all of that in your activations. And then, if so be it, the end of the world comes and we're all doing ham radio, at least we'll all still be able to talk to each other, because we'll know how to set up antennas very quickly. We'll know how to get our batteries running and add solar, and we'll still be able to have our QSO conversations while the world's on fire behind us. All right. So with that, I think, let me see. I don't have any more slides here, so we're good here. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful for you. I know people thought I was drinking through most of this, but no, I was not. just water and coffee, my friends. I got to keep on track otherwise. And so, yeah, if you're interested in doing this, I'm curious. I want, head over to the Discord, be part of that. The link's at the top of the chat there. If you haven't joined or you're not a part of it, let me know if you're experimenting and, trying to incorporate this into your activations because I want to learn from you guys, and I want to, obviously, collaborate and share. So let's keep this train going here, and learn from one another. And maybe if you're a contester and you do this often, come on over to the POTA side, show us a little bit on that stuff in terms of how to optimize your radios and things of that nature, so we can incorporate things like this into our activations. Because it's funny, is like I hear like when Toads does its meetup down in Florida and other places, like the biggest complaint I hear everybody is that there's 7 bazillion people all on the radios. Nobody brings filtering. It's just this big mess of overloading front ends and all this other stuff that people go, oh yeah, we're just here really for the hangout, because the radio side of things is just a big, chaotic mess. And whatever. So yeah, we've been the same way too. I've been to, even field days like that where it's like, did you remember bringing bandpass filters? No. All right. So any last bit comments or anything you want to throw in there, Shannon?
No, I don't really have too much. I know it looks like some people were just joining us. I think Bob just came in. Don N5 SKT just came in. So, if you missed this morning's show, then you can always catch us again tonight, because we're going to have that very special episode, a very special episode of
A whole new world. Sorry.
of Live Free and Ham with, myself. I'm pretty sure Shannon K1LY is going to be there. The ham radio chick, I think, is going to be there.
You want the list?
Julie is going to be there.
I'll give you the list. So it's Julie K4ULZ. It's Shannon K1LY. It's Christine and Paula, both Queens of the Mountains. They were on Live Free and Ham about a year ago talking about that. It'll be Ham Radio Chick.
Caitlin.
My gosh, Caitlin, thank you. She spells it with a C, so it always throws a curve for me. There'll be
how you spell it.
Is it? Oh, okay, sorry. And then like Eric is ERICK. Is that too how you spell it too as well? I'm gonna fight you on that one.
No, just ERIK.
That's even worse. That's a fight word. Oh my gosh, I just had 3 others there. So yeah, we're gonna have a huge group of ladies there, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with all of them. We're just pretty much probably gonna just say hello, we're Live Free and Ham, and then it's just gonna be a ladies show. That's kind of how I'm envisioning this.
It's ladies' night. Don't get demonetized. It's ladies' night.
The good news is Live Free and Ham's not monetized yet, so we're already set for that. Good on that one. So head on over the link here. I'll just throw in the description in the chat there one more time there, just in case you missed it. If I grab it here, come on. That is, you can head over to Live Free and Ham. If you're not already subscribed, hit that bell and you can check out all that action. It's tonight, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. So get that on your calendars, and would love to have you hanging out there. And yeah, those that are doing the 5-2 challenge, freaking keep going. It's awesome stuff. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. Head over to Mike's channel, N2MAK. Check him out there if you want to learn more about that. And that link here, I'll throw that in the description as well, because, there's a lot of latecomers here. And so with that, we can put a bow on this and wrap it up. I'm definitely... hopefully you enjoyed what we were talking about today. I mean, it was definitely a little different, and hopefully you guys can contribute more. Head on over to the Discord. Let us know how you're thinking through this process if you're going to try to attempt it, and let's see if we can support each other along the way. And with that, remember, whether you're activating, hunting, the goal is simple. Have fun, stay safe, keep exploring, and until next time, are we going to try this again? Do I have to write this down for you?
Yes,
I'll just say, keep your radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on.
POTA on.